The valley slept beneath a cold alien moon. Silver light spilled across the hills, and the grass shimmered like glass. Elias sat by the fire, sharpening a blade out of habit more than need. Shadow lay nearby, his eyes half closed, ears twitching with every sound. It was too quiet, and quiet meant danger. A pulse in the sky broke the silence, a ripple of energy as the invisible ship uncloaked. Sleek, black, and armed. It hovered low, no insignia now, just shadows and intent. Elias rose slowly. "Wake up, boy!" Shadow's eyes glowed faintly blue. He stood, muscles rippling under his fur. The moment stretched long enough for the air to feel heavy. Then the sky screamed. Drones rained down like metallic hornets, spinning nets of plasma light. The fire exploded into sparks as the ground shook. Elias grabbed his pack, rolled aside, and shouted, "Move!" The first net hit where he'd stood seconds ago. Shadow leapt through it, claws tearing at the glowing mesh. The drones swarmed, trying to cut off every escape. Elias sprinted toward the ridge, ducking blasts of blue energy. He hit the dirt, pulled a flare from his belt, and snapped it open. The valley lit up in bright red smoke. "Come on!" Shadow charged past him, knocking 2 drones out of the air with a single bound. Sparks flew. A third drone aimed at Elias. The wolf slammed into it mid-shot, shredding it apart. For every drone destroyed, 3 more appeared. Elias realized what this was. Extraction, not elimination. They wanted him alive. "Shadow, not so much. They're separating us," Elias muttered. "Not happening." He reached into his vest and triggered the emergency signal, something the council leader had given him for diplomacy. It was the only gamble left. The beacon pulsed bright green. High above, the council station picked up the distress call. In the council chamber, the leader stared at the signal. "That's the human." Her aide frowned. "The military lockdown was supposed to end yesterday. Who authorized this strike?" No one answered. "Get me a ship," she ordered. Now. Back in the valley, the fight turned brutal. The soldiers landed in black armor, forming a perimeter. Pulse rifles hummed. Elias crouched behind a rock, breathing hard. "Shadow," he whispered. "You ready?" The wolf's ears flattened. His gaze was sharp, waiting. Elias stepped into the open, raising his hands. "You want me?" "Fine, but you don't touch him." The commander's voice came through the comm. "Stand down, human. The creature is property of the Galactic Defense Division now." Elias laughed once bitterly. "Property? You can't own trust." Then the commander raised his hand and everything exploded. The blast threw Elias backward. Dirt and blue flame rained down. Shadow howled, leaping to shield him. Plasma fire burned across his side, but he didn't fall. He tore into the nearest soldier, dragging him down with a snarl that echoed through the valley. Elias struggled to his feet, vision blurred. "Shadow!" The wolf turned, one eye glowing fiercely through the smoke. Elias could barely breathe, but he forced out the words. "Together!" They charged. Human and predator, one heartbeat. Shadow ripped through armor, jaws clamped on steel and flesh. Elias swung the broken baton like a blade, knocking out power cells and cutting through the net field. The soldiers faltered. For the first time, the predators weren't them. The commander shouted into his comm, "Call the ship! Pull back!" Too late. A blinding beam struck from the clouds, a council vessel descending fast. The military ship jerked upward, caught in a gravity snare. Engines screamed, metal tore. The council leader's voice thundered through the comms. "Stand down, all units! You violated interspecies treaty protocol!" The soldiers froze. Elias dropped to one knee, exhausted, smoke curling from his gear. Shadow limped to his side, bleeding but alive. The council guards spread out, securing the field. The leader stepped forward, her crystalline form glowing faintly in the dust. "You warned us," she said softly. Elias looked up. "And you didn't listen." Her gaze lingered on Shadow. "He fought for you. Not as a weapon, as a partner," Elias nodded slowly. "That's what you never understood. Trust doesn't come from control. It comes from choice." The leader looked to her officers. "Take them to the station. Medical care first. Then we'll decide what happens next." Elias shook his head. "You already decided when you let this happen." But he didn't resist. Shadow leaned against him, both of them too tired to fight anymore. As they boarded the transport, Elias glanced back at the valley. the battlefield that had become a symbol. He didn't know it yet, but across the galaxy, millions were already watching the footage. The image of one human and one predator, fighting side by side, had begun to spread faster than any message the Council ever sent. Elias woke in a bright white room. The air smelled sterile, humming softly with life support systems. His arm was bandaged. Across from him, through a glass wall, Shadow rested on a wide platform, breathing slow but steady. Machines scanned him, projecting faint blue patterns across his fur. The door opened. The Council leader entered quietly. Her crystalline body reflected the light like frozen fire. "He'll live," she said. "You both will." Elias sat up. "You fixed him?" "He refused treatment until you woke up." "He nearly bit one of the medics." Elias laughed weakly. "Sounds like him." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she said, "Do you understand what you've done, human?" He frowned. "I defended myself. You changed us," she said simply. "Half the galaxy now questions what we are. They want to know how a creature built for killing can choose to protect." Elias leaned back, eyes distant. "It's not about power. It's about trust. You can't program it, can't copy it. You have to earn it, one heartbeat at a time." The leader studied him for a while, her glow dimming softly. "You and your predator will not be contained again, but there are those who will still come for you." Elias smiled faintly. "Let them. We'll be ready." Later, he stood by Shadow's side as the medical field dissolved. The wolf rose, shaking off the last of the scanners. He looked thinner, but his eyes burned brighter than ever. Elias placed a hand on his neck. "Guess we're famous now." Shadow tilted his head, ears twitching. Through the observation glass, dozens of aliens watched silently. Soldiers, scientists, civilians. None spoke. Then one by one they stepped closer. The smallest among them, a young alien child with silver skin, placed a glowing sphere on the ground. Shadow walked forward, sniffed it once, then sat down beside it calmly. The entire hall erupted in light as more children followed, placing small gifts, stones, feathers, shining tokens of peace. The soldiers lowered their weapons. For the first time in the Council's long history, predator and prey stood together without fear. Far away, in the black halls of the military division, the commander watched the broadcast in silence, his plans, his ambition, all undone by one human and a beast. He crushed his comm device in his fist. "End of project," he muttered. "They've already won the hearts." Weeks passed. The galaxy shifted. On hundreds of worlds, new programs began, ones that studied not domination, but cooperation. Humans were no longer seen as unpredictable savages. They were the bridge between chaos and balance. Elias didn't stay to see it all. He and Shadow left quietly, taking a small ship offered by the Council leader herself. Before leaving, she said, "If you ever return, you'll have allies. But perhaps you were never meant to stay in one place." Elias smiled. "Neither are wolves." The ship drifted away from the station into the open dark. Elias sat in the cockpit, hand resting on Shadow's neck. Stars filled the window, endless and wild. "You know," he said softly, "they invited us to bring pets. I think we brought something better." Shadow gave a soft growl. Low and content, and somewhere out there in the vast and silent galaxy, new stories began to form about the man who walked beside a predator, and the beast that taught the stars what trust meant. The galaxy had seen monsters before, but nothing like the one Professor Varn built in his cold laboratory on the edge of Orion space. They called it the Kill Beast, a creature of muscle and engineered bone, trained to obey no one, not even the professor who made it. It was made to fight wars the way machines couldn't, with instinct, rage, and a strange spark that felt almost alive. The professor stood behind reinforced glass as the beast tore through a dozen metal drones. Every strike shook the floor. The creature didn't roar like an animal. It growled low like something thinking. The aliens in the lab whispered among themselves. None of them had seen anything this powerful. It was not a weapon. It was domination wrapped in fur and fire. They said it bowed to no one. And they were right. Until the day the humans arrived. Humanity was late to the galactic stage. Most species saw them as fragile, loud, and strangely emotional. But when the human ambassador walked into the research deck that day, silence followed him. He wasn't covered in armor or surrounded by guards. He just stood there, plain uniform, steady eyes. The professor expected fear. Instead, the man's voice was calm. "So this is your kill beast?" The professor nodded, nervous. "It listens to no one. It destroys what it sees." The human smiled slightly. "May I?" Before anyone could stop him, the human stepped into the containment zone. Every alien froze. The professor shouted for him to stop, but the doors sealed with a heavy thud. The beast lifted its head. Its eyes glowed faint green, tracking the stranger's movements. Every muscle tensed, claws scraping the floor. One hit from that thing could split steel in half. But the human didn't flinch. He walked slowly, his boots echoing on the metal floor. The alien scientists hid behind the glass, whispering bets on how fast he would die. The beast moved first, fast enough to blur. It stopped inches away, claws ready, breath hot enough to fog the air between them. The human didn't even raise his hand. He just looked at it. Not with fear, but with understanding. "Easy," he said softly. Something strange happened then. The kill beast blinked. Its claws lowered a fraction. The professor's instruments started beeping wildly. Neural patterns, emotional spikes, signals no one had seen before. The creature was hesitating. The human reached out his hand. For a long second, no one breathed. Then the kill beast, the galaxy's deadliest creation, leaned forward and touched the human's palm with its massive head. No one in the lab spoke. The professor's jaw fell open. "Impossible," he whispered. The human looked back at him and said, "It's not impossible. It's just lonely." The control room went silent again. The aliens didn't understand the word. Lonely. But the creature did. It gave a low rumble, almost like a sigh. For the first time since it was born, it looked calm. That was the moment the galaxy changed. Word spread faster than any fleet could travel. The creature that obeyed no one had bowed its head to a human. Some said it was magic, others said manipulation. The professor called it a psychological anomaly, but the human called it something else entirely. "Empathy," he said. "It's what you left out of your design." That day, every alien scientist in the lab saw something terrifying. Not the beast, but the human. The way he stood beside that monster, unarmed, calm, unshaken. The way the creature sat down beside him, like a loyal guardian. It was unnatural yet perfect. Outside the glass, the professor watched the human scratch the beast behind its ear. The beast purred, deep and low, shaking the floor again. It wasn't a sound of threat this time. It was comfort. The professor realized he had created something magnificent, but he also realized something else. The universe's most dangerous force wasn't his creation. It was the quiet human who made the monster gentle, and while the aliens argued over data, trying to understand what had happened, the human turned and said, "It only needed someone to see it for what it is, not what it was made to be." He walked out, the creature following him like a shadow. No command, no leash, no control, just trust. The professor stood there for a long time after they were gone. The lab lights dimmed, and the silence felt heavier than before. He looked down at his trembling hands and whispered to himself, "If they can tame this, what else are humans capable of?" Outside, in the void beyond the station, the stars flickered faintly. Somewhere out there, a human and a beast walked together, not as master and weapon, but as something new, something the universe was not ready for. The Galactic Council pretended calm, but every species knew fear was spreading behind closed doors. The story of the kill beast and the human had shaken their order. For centuries, they ruled through power, logic, and control. Now one human and one creature had shown something stronger: understanding. The council called it a containment breach of influence, but the whispers outside called it the awakening. On the research moon of Delta 4, the professor's laboratory was now a fortress. Drones circled above, scanning every breath and movement. Inside, Hearth and the kill beast were under observation. The creature rested quietly, chained by light restraints, while Hearth sat beside it reading data logs. To the scientists, the human was a mystery. His body showed no implants, no enhancers. He was ordinary by galactic standards. Yet the creature obeyed him, even when the Council's neural shock tests failed to separate them. The professor entered the room one morning, exhausted. "Captain, they're planning something worse. The Council wants to duplicate your bond. They're calling it Project Mirror." Hearth looked up. "Duplicate? They believe your emotional frequency can be harvested. They want to train other beasts, to use empathy as a weapon." The kill beast stirred, sensing the tension. Its bright green eyes flickered toward the professor as if it understood every word. Hearth sighed. "So they've learned nothing?" "No," the professor said quietly. "They've learned too much." That evening, the Council's ships arrived, silent black vessels hovering above the lab. Dozens of armored guards poured in. They didn't speak. They only followed protocol. Hearth and the creature were to be separated. When the guards entered, the kill beast rose instantly. The air thickened with static, the lights dimming as if the station itself was afraid. The creature's fur bristled, claws extended. "Stand down!" A commander barked, raising his plasma rifle. The professor shouted, "Don't provoke it!" But fear overrode reason. One of the guards fired a containment dart. It hit the creature's shoulder, a small spark, but enough to trigger a storm. The kill beast roared, a sound that rattled bones. Energy shields shattered, panels exploded. Hearth jumped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Stop!" The creature froze mid-swing. It turned its massive head toward him, breathing hard, eyes glowing like wildfire. "Calm," he whispered. "You're safe." It lowered its claws. The guard stared in disbelief. The creature that could shred metal listened to a single human voice. The commander's face twisted with disgust. This is unnatural." "That thing belongs in a cage." Hearth stepped closer. "And maybe you belong in a mirror?" The guards hesitated, unsure what to do. The professor took advantage of the silence. "If you take them apart, you'll start another war. You don't understand what that bond is holding back." But the order was already given. The commander raised his communicator. Activate the override. Somewhere deep in the station, hidden systems powered up. The same control codes used to paralyze the kill beast during testing. The creature stiffened, pain flashing through its body. It let out a distorted growl, trembling. Hearth grabbed its head, pressing his forehead against its fur. "Stay with me." "Fight it!" Monitors screamed with warnings. Neural energy spiked to impossible levels. The professor watched in awe. The creature wasn't collapsing. It was resisting. Lights flickered. The entire moon shook. The Council ships above sent distress signals as energy waves burst outward. Systems crashed, communications died, and the override control melted in its own circuit. When the power returned, the guards were on the floor, unconscious. Smoke rose from their armor. The creature stood still, breathing slow, eyes calm again. Hearth's hand rested on its shoulder. The professor whispered, "You just shut down their control network." Hearth didn't answer. He looked at the creature and said softly, "We're done being their experiment." That night they escaped. The lab was in chaos, alarms wailing, ships scrambling, soldiers shouting orders that no one followed. But nothing could stop them. The kill beast tore through sealed doors like paper, moving carefully to shield Hearth from debris. The professor followed, clutching stolen data cores filled with every experiment the Council ever hid. Outside, under the silver light of Delta IV's twin moons, a small cargo ship waited. Old. Human-made, slow, but free. They climbed aboard, systems flickering to life. As the engines roared, the professor looked back once at the burning laboratory. "That place built monsters," he said quietly. "Now it's burning because of one that learned mercy." Hearth nodded. "Then let's see what mercy can do." As the ship lifted off, the kill beast pressed its head against the window, watching the planet shrink behind them. Its reflection glowed beside Hearth's, man and beast, two beings that were never supposed to coexist, now fugitives together. Across the galaxy, the Council declared them enemies of order. Bounties were issued, fleets were mobilized, but among the lower colonies, whispers began again. Whispers of a man who freed a monster and a monster that protected a man. They called it the beginning of something new. Some said rebellion, others said hope. And far away in the darkness between stars, Captain Hearth whispered to his companion, "They'll come for us. But they'll never understand what they're fighting." The killbeast's eyes glowed brighter, and for the first time it made a sound like laughter. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but the war to control power had already turned into something far greater, a war to understand the heart. Varen's Reach had always been forgotten by the stars, a quiet outlaw world buried in dust and silence. But tonight it burned with light. Engines thundered through the dark sky as makeshift defense ships rose from the sand, their hulls shaking and sparking. Old freighters, mining crafts, stolen patrol carriers, all welded together to stand against the most powerful force in the galaxy. Captain Hearth stood on the command platform of their patched-up control tower, staring at the distant glow on the horizon. Dozens of red dots blinked across the radar. The Council's fleet had arrived. The professor ran to his side, clutching a data pad. They brought warships from 3 systems. Dreadnoughts, cruisers, everything. We can't fight that. Hearth didn't look away from the sky. We're not fighting for victory, he said quietly. We're fighting to show them we exist. Down below, the settlers prepared. Aliens, humans, machines, even children helping to carry power cells to defense cannons. In the center of it all stood the killbeast, unmoving, waiting for its command. Its eyes flickered like twin emerald suns. When the first blast hit the atmosphere, the desert shook. Lightning of plasma streaked across the sky, ripping clouds apart. Old shields crackled and failed, but the rebels held their ground. Ships screamed through the dust, engaging in uneven dogfights against perfect military formations. "Transmission coming through," shouted a technician. "Council Command wants to speak." The hologram flickered to life. The silver-skinned leader appeared, calm as a statue. "Captain Hearth," he said, "you have one chance. Surrender the creature and yourself. We will spare the others." Hearth stared at him, then slowly shook his head. "You already took everything from them. There's nothing left to surrender." The hologram narrowed its eyes. "You've brought chaos to our order. Do you think you can win?" Hearth's voice stayed steady. "No, but we can make the galaxy see you bleed." The signal cut out. A second later, the bombardment began. Explosions tore through the settlements, sand turning to fire. The air filled with screams, smoke, and light. The professor ducked as debris fell around him. "We can't hold this!" he shouted. Hearth looked down at the killbeast. "We don't have to hold it. We just have to survive it." The creature lifted its head, as if understanding. Then it moved, faster than anything alive had the right to move. It leapt across the desert, claws striking deep into the earth. Energy pulsed from its body, rippling through the sand like waves. Council soldiers landed in drop pods, their armor gleaming. The killbeast met them head-on. Its roar cracked through the battlefield, scattering ranks like leaves. Plasma bolts hit its hide and burned away uselessly. It tore through the front lines, not killing everything in sight, just clearing space for the civilians to run. From the control tower, Hearth watched with awe. "It's protecting them," the professor's voice trembled. "It's learning." The battle stretched for hours. Every time the council forces advanced, the creature forced them back. Every time they tried to cage it, it broke free. Its movements grew more precise, not rage, but strategy. It began disabling weapons instead of destroying them, using pieces of wreckage to shield the rebels. At one point, the silver-skinned commander himself descended to the planet, standing in the ruins of what was once the research station. He called out through the smoke, voice echoing through amplifiers. "Creature, you were made by us! You belong to us!" The killbeast turned, breathing hard, its massive frame glowing with heat. Hearth walked beside it unarmed. He called back, "It doesn't belong to anyone." The commander lifted his weapon. "Then you'll die with it." The shot fired, but the killbeast was faster. It moved in a blur, taking the impact full on the chest. The energy exploded across its body, throwing dust and flame into the sky. The shockwave dropped everyone to their knees. When the smoke cleared, the creature still stood, wounded, glowing faintly, eyes burning brighter than ever. It looked down at Hearth and rumbled softly. Then, for the first time, it spoke, not in words but in thought, echoing through every mind on the battlefield. Protect. Every soldier froze. Even the professor gasped. The kill beast charged again, unleashing a soundless pulse that bent light itself. Ships faltered. Shields collapsed. The Council's network flickered and died. In orbit, their massive dreadnoughts went dark, floating helplessly. Across the battlefield, soldiers dropped their weapons, stunned by the voice still echoing in their skulls. Protect. And just like that, it stopped. The creature lowered itself beside Hearth, breathing slow, the glow fading from its body. The battle was over. The Council's fleet began retreating, unable to explain what had just happened. The professor stumbled forward, eyes wide. It connected with them all. Every mind, every soldier. It didn't destroy them. It showed them. Showed them what? Hearth asked. That it felt. Silence fell. The only sound was the wind moving across the burnt sand. The rebels looked up at the sky and saw the impossible. The Council's ships leaving, retreating from a world that wasn't supposed to exist. The kill beast lifted its head toward Hearth one last time. For the first time since its creation, its eyes showed peace and something deeper, something almost human. Hearth placed a hand against its warm fur. You did it, the professor's voice shook. You both did. As the dawn rose over the ruins of Varen's Reach, the galaxy changed again. The story of the human and the creature that felt spread farther than any fleet could travel. On distant worlds, slaves whispered it like prayer. Scientists debated it like blasphemy. And on the Council's homeworld, for the first time in 1,000 years, leaders spoke in fear. The war wasn't over, but something far greater had begun, a revolution of hearts. Weeks passed after the Battle of Varen's Reach, but the galaxy didn't return to silence. It trembled. Fleets stopped moving. Commanders hesitated before giving orders. For the first time in generations, the Galactic Council's voice was not obeyed without question. Entire colonies that once feared their rule began refusing to send tribute. The unthinkable was happening. Obedience was fading. The Council gathered in emergency session under their shimmering dome of light. Their faces were grim, pale, and uncertain. The silver-skinned leader stood at the center, his voice low and bitter. The human has infected us, not with weapons or technology, but with ideas, a reptilian counselor hissed. He must be eliminated. The creature destroyed, another voice quieter said. And what if that makes him a martyr? Already half the border worlds are chanting his name. The leader slammed his hand down, the lights flickering. Then we erase his story. Wipe every record. Make him a myth. Myths can't lead rebellions. But it was already too late. Across the galaxy, the story of the kill beast and the human had become a spark that no government could contain. Miners on frozen moons spoke of the creature's voice that reached into their dreams. Farmers on alien worlds whispered that they saw its glowing eyes in the night sky. The professor, now hidden deep underground, intercepted thousands of transmissions carrying the same phrase. Protect. On Varen's Reach, the air had grown quiet again. The desert winds carried no smoke, only the sound of rebuilding. Ships were being repaired, homes raised from ruins, and people laughed without looking over their shoulders. The kill beast rested near the canyon cliffs, its wounds slowly healing. Its fur shimmered with faint green light under the twin suns. Hearth sat beside it, silent, staring at the horizon. The professor approached carefully. The Council won't stay quiet forever. They're reorganizing. I can feel it. Hearth nodded. They'll come again. But this time, they won't be facing soldiers. The professor frowned. What do you mean? They'll be facing everyone who remembers what happened here. The old scientist sighed, looking at the creature. Do you think it understands what it started? The kill beast turned its head, watching the two men. Its eyes flickered. Then its thoughts brushed across their minds again, soft and clear. Understand. Feel. Live. The professor froze. It's evolving faster than before. Hearth smiled faintly. It's becoming what they were afraid of. Something alive enough to choose peace. As if to answer, the creature rose, stretching its enormous frame, then looked toward the sky. Its gaze fixed on the stars, the same direction the council fleets had fled. A deep rumble came from its chest, not anger, but a call. Moments later, the communication console in the outpost lit up. An incoming signal, encrypted but not from the council. The professor activated it cautiously. A hologram appeared. A small alien woman, her eyes tired but defiant. "Captain Hearth," she said. "I speak for the colonies of the Outer Rim. We've seen your message. We're ready to stand with you." Hearth exchanged a glance with the professor. "You understand what that means? The council will call it rebellion." The woman's voice was steady. "Then let them." One by one, other signals began connecting. Dozens, then hundreds. Ships, settlements, outposts, all joining the same network. The screen filled with faces from every species, every world. The professor whispered, "It's spreading. Faster than any virus I've ever seen." Hearth nodded. "It's not a virus. It's hope." The kill beast stepped closer, lowering its massive head near the console. Its reflection appeared in the flickering light, towering and calm. Its eyes seemed to watch all of them at once. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Hearth said quietly, "Let's finish what we started." Within days, the rebellion became an alliance. The Free Orbiters transformed into the Unity Accord, a coalition of beings who had nothing in common except the will to live without fear. They didn't build armies. They built connections. They used the professor's data to reveal every secret the council had buried, every experiment, every lie. Truth became their weapon. The council tried to fight it, but you can't shoot an idea. Their fleets turned on each other, soldiers refusing to fire, captains defecting, systems declaring independence one after another, and at the heart of it all, the creature remained, silent, watching. The being that once knew only killing now carried peace like a torch in the dark. When the council's capital finally fell, there was no victory parade, no vengeance. Just a message broadcast across the stars, spoken in Hearth's voice. We don't seek control. We seek balance. What was built from fear will fall to empathy. Let this be our first lesson as one galaxy, not as rulers and slaves, but as life. The kill beast's image appeared beside him, its eyes glowing softly. Across thousands of worlds, children pointed at the sky and whispered the word it had taught them. Protect. Years later, after peace settled and the stars seemed gentler, stories about that day still traveled from planet to planet. Some said the creature disappeared into the black, guarding the edges of the known universe. Others claimed it lived on Varen's Reach, quietly watching over those who came after. The professor grew old and wrote his final study, ending it with a single line. Empathy is the final evolution of intelligence. As for Hearth, legends say he was last seen walking along the dunes at sunset, the great creature beside him. No one followed. No one had to, because wherever they went, the galaxy changed with them. A reminder carved not in stone, but in hearts. The professor's pet kill beast no longer bowed to anyone. And the human who freed it didn't conquer the stars. He simply taught them how to feel.